reworked wells and drilling into understanding like what the reserves, so knowing how much oil is underneath, right? Again, you drill into that. But the other piece to add that, really makes us successful with the investments we've, done as well as raised for is the idea of portfolio of wells. So just like a property, there's a difference between a single property, right? Who may be doing well, may not be doing well. But the combination of all of them are really then the opportunity to have, really just, security again, this concept called like a rent roll, right?
You're listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, where you get valuable information you just can't find anywhere else. To thrive in today's trying times, you need the Financial Survival Network, now more than ever. Go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com and get your free newsletter and gift. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.
And welcome. You are watching and listening to the Financial Survival Network. I'm your host, Kerry Lutz. Well, today we're going to learn about how you invest in oil and gas wells without buying a stock, actually investing in the physical well, getting a percentage of its profits and a percentage of its tax benefits. Because if you know anything about oil, there are huge tax benefits that accrue when you own a producing well. Paul Graham is with us. Paul, hey, how do you go from real estate broker, real estate agent to selling oil and gas participations?
Very, very carefully. Sometimes the road is unknown, right? But one thing I've found through just my career is I found that real estate was very, interesting to me. I did portfolio commercial office leasing when I was a broker, and really found that I didn't want to be in the industry itself, but just the investment, the numbers of things were just fascinating to me. One of my superpowers is connecting people to capital. And so lo and behold, with StrengthsFinder 2.0, a little bit of time and knowing the right people, kind of landed on the planet called oil and gas investing. So,
all right. So I guess there's some similarities here.
Yeah, there's a number of different similarities. Like the best way that I go about to explain this is because most people are familiar with syndications in the multifamily space, mainly because there's more multifamily properties than, other types of assets. And traditionally, that's how people get into commercial real estate, right? They know someone who's doing a syndication and they're like, yeah, I'm an expert in, multifamily because I lived in an apartment, right? And no shame on that. It's just more of they're familiar with it, right? And so as you look at how you're comparing them, if you will, from an investor perspective, a multifamily property has a rent roll, right? Oil and gas is a little bit of an amoeba. What I mean by that is you can either poke a hole in the ground, right? Exploratory. It could have oil, it could not. The specific projects that myself and other partners have raised, at this point over $17 million for, and we actually have a current project right now, is on a portfolio of wells to rework existing wells, as well as drill new wells on what is known for oil reserves, right? So just like a rent roll, what has happened, what will happen, and then you're just improving it, right? You're going into those rooms and you're improving them, right? And so really it's just then a transferable type of thought process. And I really want to, went through that explanation because, again, my point is also education, because you could also talk to someone who's doing oil and gas investment, but they could really just be talking about poking a hole in the ground, if you will, right? There's also vertical and horizontal wells, which, are kind of a nuance of sorts. But again, just kind of comparing apples to apples, they're kind of just a different, color, really. So,
okay. So you're selling some reworks, which are producing wells that need to be re-drilled because of the change in the composition, often the nature of the oil reservoir that they're dealing with. The projects you're marketing now, are they currently producing oil?
Yes, they're producing oil. If, I had my phone, next to me, I could show you a photo of some, oil seeping through for another well that we just, brought on live. As we're taking capital, again, to your point, these are investing into the actual wells themselves and with that ownership. And so it's an intentional bit for when and how, these wells are, brought on and how much they're producing. Because again, we have levers as opposed to, kind of like multifamily. You can't really say, hey, person, can you leave for 2 weeks? We kind of want to increase rents and then you can come back.
Right.
With oil and gas, you have those levers with the commodity market. And so you can then play that game, really just then say, we can maximize returns given the, current economic conditions, as well as, minimize risk to ensure that we're not just producing for the sake of producing, right? So
Gotcha. Okay. So there's some production already.
Correct.
How often do the distributions get paid out? Are they monthly, quarterly? How's that work?
Yeah, so these are monthly distributions. Really, it's just going to the mailbox at this point, right? And I mean that sincerely. Of like it is going to the mailbox. It's not like a tenants and toilets, sort of situation, which I've experienced, being a owner in real estate, and then just like with syndications, oftentimes there's complex, cap tables or what have you. But this is really just a legitimately going to a mailbox type of scenario.
Okay, so. What kind of returns are we looking at here?
Yeah, we're underwrote initially like a $60 a barrel type framework around that 20%. Really with oil where it is today and the returns of what we're actually getting today, is between 31 to 33. There's another project we previously had that produced I think it was like 41. So there are a number of these small factors, but it's just to say from a track record standpoint, these, at least in my opinion, are enough to get out of bed. Single digit real estate type returns are not, I'll kind of say in bed at that point, right? There was a high season for, the past 4 years, or really like 3 years, if you will. And then now, again, it's just to say, hey, it's shifted to diversification with something like oil. So
who are the companies that are selling these participations, and what do I need to know about them?
So, really just like any syndication of sorts, it's, knowing the operators themselves as well as the details of kind of the market they're, playing into. Specifically, with the one that we're raising for today is for through the Trevino family. So it's a third generation oil and gas family that with investments have then been able to expand, their current, operating opportunity, of which again returns to investors. This is in the Jack County, Texas area. And so, very well versed in terms of, how oil can be, produced as well as transported. So it's not in some, boony kind of place where it's a gold mine, but, by the time it comes back, it's, you're using gas to kind of transport the gas kind of thing, right? So that's a little bit about it. All
right. So what's the minimum investment in these types of syndications?
All over the board, again, just kind of from an education standpoint, 50 tends to be the minimum for this and kind of another project. It's really been the minimum of 100,000. And, we've done different projections so that people can kind of play with numbers of, hey, if I invested 100 or 200, what, could that really turn into? And again, from people coming from real estate to oil, this tends to be the easiest, transfer of amount invested, especially because at least with this project, you are able to invest with 1031 exchange money, which kind of changes the game, right? If you've done a 1031 or anyone else who's done a 1031, like I get stressed from it. I'm in the process of maybe doing another one right now. So just already knowing what I'm going to invest in and not have this, I don't know, like unknown sort of piece is just comforting to say the least. So
sure, no, I could see that for sure. All right, so you have to be accredited for this type of thing or unaccredited?
So yeah, for us, like we've a couple projects that are both non-accredited and accredited. For myself as well, it's just to say like, hey, like let's have a conversation. The reason why I'm saying that is because I've looked at a number of things of leveraging my own finances where oftentimes it's like, do I have 50 grand like in the bank to invest? Maybe, maybe not, right? But there's things like IRAs that you can, transfer into, or, getting maybe a HELOC on your primary to invest. And I'm not saying like you need to do these things, but my point is, certainly want to just be a resource to educate individuals around oil and gas because it is a nuance. And some people are to the level of sophistication in terms of explaining and education, as well as operating, right? And so really just want to ensure, regardless of where and how you're investing, to ensure that, you have a great investment with amazing operators and you're able to do it. Sometimes people don't feel like they can, but by golly, if you're using this, especially for tax savings, like, are you just going to pay the IRS or going to invest in something that then offsets, that income, right? And so playing with that, working with your CPA, work with a number of CPAs to help just support that for either, this tax season or, even next. So you actually know what's possible. And you can do this thing called planning, because there have been years of my life where it's like, oh, darn, I really should have done that last year. And then I don't do it. So that sort of planning sort of piece is an important aspect. But like I said, we have everything tight knit and buttoned up. That's at least why I put my name on it, because I want to always do the best that's possible within just life, but also just, with relationships, with returns, things like that. And so that's why we really enjoyed working with a third generation, family, oil and gas family, that is. So,
okay. So what's the profit split between the promoter and the investors? How does that work?
Yeah. So, there's a bunch of different, what am I trying to say? That, IRR is kind of the best way to go about it, because this isn't when you compare truly like apples to apples, right? There's different nuances. So it's just to say, from an IRR standpoint, 26% of sorts, at least, is from, our underwriting. Depending on what's invested and what's then returned in terms of expenses. So it's not like a traditional waterfall type model in the short explanation. So
okay, gotcha. All right. So obviously, it's so how have you seen these deals pay off in the past? Have they all worked out? All your deals?
So all of ours, yes. All oil and gas, no. Again, from my explanation of just kind of like poke a hole in the ground, right? Like that's 100% risk. Well, maybe not 100% risk, but that's not a risk I'm willing to take. I take calculated risk. That just seems like gambling to me personally. So again, reworked wells and drilling into understanding like what the reserves, so knowing how much oil is underneath, right? Again, you drill into that. But the other piece to add that, really makes us successful with the investments we've, done as well as raised for is the idea of portfolio of wells. So just like a property, there's a difference between a single property, right? Who may be doing well, may not be doing well. But the combination of all of them are really then the opportunity to have, really just, security, again, this concept called like a rent roll, right? To really, stabilize the overall investment, not just that single well, single asset. So
the primary difference being you have a lease, you have tenants, they signed leases, and can't say, well, the price of housing went down this month, so you're getting less money from me. But maybe next month it'll go up, so I'll pay you more in rent. Obviously, there's market risk here, as there is in any market, but
sure,
it's more immediate, whereas rents might go down in a given area. You're not going to have to worry about it till the rent lease renewal comes up. But with oil, your impact from market fluctuations is more immediate, right?
Yes, it is impactful in the sense of the direct, barrel price of oil, right? Again, in my earlier comment on really levers, right? So if prices are high, well, then great. Like, what does that mean in terms of how the operator is going to maybe reduce some of the production on some wells or maybe all wells? So that way, again, it's maximizing returns. So even though, yes, ideally you want the highest price barrel of oil, there's also something to consider around, because it is oil and there's only so much oil within that, specific reserve, at least with that technology we have today. We initially weren't able to go more than like a mile. Right now we're going all which ways and whatnot and constantly finding oil. My point is that just because oil is high doesn't necessarily mean that we're going to produce at all, heights and just, max it out. Right. And that's not, my role essentially like as an operator, but it's something to, understand for operators, that they understand this thing called basic economics, right? Supply and demand, to your point, to then say, hey,
few people understand that.
Hey, I took a class or two in high school, and there's a curve going up and curve going down. And sometimes it's kind of a lime and a coconut. But really, it's just to say, like, again, vetting like the operator for how they think.
I like
because
that.
that's also going to be, how they are in the decisions they make, right? Same thing with multifamily. Hey, are we going to do, cap calls? Are we going to do even, renovations of all the property, or are we going to do it over time? Like, it's really then understanding what's possible and then being comfortable with the risk that someone is taking on with the investment and how they're going about that as well. Because you can maybe vastly disagree with how they're approaching it. But again, if you're getting the returns, do you care? But again, understanding how they could, pull those levers isn't important for any investment, right? This is regardless of oil and gas. So, and that's just what I found from investing in passive type investments or raising funds in general. So,
this is not for the faint of heart, right? I mean, you think somebody who's been a real estate investor 20, 30 years, how do you feel? You know what I'm saying?
I hear you. So my parents were in education and were, Lockheed Martin kind of security, right? Just like had to be consistent, like just, bureaucracy to the nth degree, right? My point is just like people will go outside of their threshold with more information, and with more information, then it's giving themselves permission to make a decision, right?
Gotcha.
And so it's to say, hey, like, here's the type of returns, here's the benefits. It's this thing called oil and gas. Again, education. Now, will the 20, 30-year veteran do this or do that? I'm not sure. What's their risk portfolio? What's, their available cash? Are they looking to sell a property? I've seen people who were house flippers who had a seasoned career with it, sell everything, stop the business, put everything into oil and gas, and is now coaching individuals on mindset and success. And he's doing well, not only for his business, but also for his investments. And it really gave him the opportunity to live the ideal life that he really felt like he could. And that's my main mission and reason behind just talking about investments or just bringing education to people. It's because oftentimes we're maybe one investment that is vetted very well, right, away from a different type of life. Maybe it's on the beach, right, with the limes and the coconuts. Sure. Maybe it's just, little, Disney World type of play money, right? Or maybe it's more security, those type of things. It's definitely not for the faint of heart, but if anyone has wired over, 50 to 500 grand buying their primary residence, you've already done the same darn thing. It's really just an investment in yourself and in your future than necessarily in the four walls that you're, really spending kind of the day-to-day around. So at least just my...
Totally get what you're saying. And, I agree with you, but, and I see some overlap, but, it's not like you're investing in a business, invest in the oil field, although you are to some extent. But, it's just a different mindset, I guess, is the term I'm looking for. All right. So how do you get involved in this? How do people connect with you on the web? And how do you buy your first oil well?
You can, if anyone's going to buy themselves, good luck. But jokes aside, it's to say that, I hear you. It's just to say that, for us, the best way to connect and have that conversation is going to trevinoresources.com/invest. Reason being is just going to give you the highlights of why oil and gas, and, an opportunity to schedule a, call with myself as well as the main operator of the company to give the information and resources you need to make the best decision for yourself. I'm all over, social media, what have you. LinkedIn can be a good way to connect with me. Paul H. Graham, last name spelled like graham cracker. And, happy to help with anyone for education as well as, really just even conversations on capital raising. Sometimes it's kind of tough right now, right? In the 2024 market, people are kind of holding back. But we've really seen how people have been holding back, waiting, and then come, election end. There's at least from some capital institutions or kind of levels, they're kind of waiting to then just, press play. So some good opportunities out there.
Okay. Hey, you got a question for Paul and myself, shoot me an email, kl@kerrylutz.com. I find the oil investing very intriguing. I've done pretty well in the past when I've done similar types of investments. And hey, you'll find a link right to Paul's site go over to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. And while you're there, just click the button and subscribe to our free newsletter. All really intriguing investment option. And we'll look forward to having you back on again.
Kerry, thanks so much for the time. Had a blast.
Thanks for listening to Kerry Lutz's Financial Survival Network, your solution to today's trying times. For the latest, go to financialsurvivalnetwork.com. Financial Survival Network, now more than ever.